in my zone, on the road to the Super Bowl. Every game on the schedule crucial, it take a toll. It don't matter if we at home or on the road. You try to tackle, I'll truck a sucker and take it soul. I'm staring at 4th and goal, gotta find an open hole. A linebacker just close a hole where I'm supposed to go. So now I'm thinking my centers are all pro, so I trust he can make a waffle wherever the ball go. Yeah, there's 5 seconds on the play clock. The crowd was loud, but they stopped. Now it's silent while they watch. They stand off in the red zone. All I see is red home. Watch me get this touchdown and this W and head home.
Welcome in, Cowboys Nation, to Game Day Live, presented by Underdog Fantasy. Week 4, Cowboys versus Commanders. You got me here, your boy Skywalker. You got my big homie here, Jesse. Mr. 4th and Long, Holley in the building. And they tried to test us, y'all.
Oh,
Cowboys Nation, they tried to test us. But we here, we live, and we are excited for this Week 4 matchup. Division rival matchup, important game, Jesse. I'm going to ask you so the people can know, but I already know how you're doing. But how you doing?
The devil was trying to get us this beautiful Sunday morning. But in the I don't want to get into my Michael Irvin. You know, I don't want to start preaching out here. But the Lord was on our side, man, and we prevailed, and we're here to bring you an awesome show. I'm feeling good. Yeah. I'm feeling good. The weather is great. I'm looking great. You know, everything is working itself out. So, you know, let's get this dub.
Let's get this dub.
And that'll make me feel real good today.
And a wise man once said here, if you look good, you feel good.
Yes.
When you feel good,
come on now,
you play good.
Come on now.
And when you play good, they pay good, baby. Let's get to the game day catch up and see who's actually going to play today. Right? Who's in, who's out today? And shout out to our guy Michael Gelkin for the updates. We got to get right into this thing. Michael Gallup, Dalton Schultz will be available for the Dallas Cowboys. We'll talk about that here in a quick second. And Connor McGovern, by the way, coming back from his high ankle sprain. So the Dallas Cowboys are getting some folks back. A bit of a surprise here. J-Ron Kearse is not playing, but MCL situation giving him an extra week to kind of heal up. Of course, Dak Prescott is out again with his right thumb injury. Jalen Tolbert, Devin Harper, and Matt Waletzko and Nashawn Wright are the others that are not active today. But obviously the biggest name there is Jalen Tolbert, who once again for the 3rd week out of 4 will not be active. At this point, is no longer a shocker, but look at it the positive way. I think that means they're happy with what they've seen from Michael Gallup, and maybe he'll get more than the reps that we expect. But let's just jump straight into that, Jesse, if you don't mind. Michael Gallup's back. We kind of touched on this briefly on Cowboys 4th and Long podcast. What does that mean for the Cowboys offense, and how should they proceed with him coming back from that ACL injury?
It means you have another playmaker. And I don't care what team you have, what quarterback you have, you want all your playmakers on the field as much as you possibly can. So what Michael Gallup brings, he brings that vertical threat. Now, with this particular quarterback and the way that Kellen Moore is calling plays, I don't know how much they're going to take advantage of that vertical threat, but having it there definitely puts in the back of the mind of defenders and defensive coordinators that it's a possibility that they can take a shot down the field. And for Michael Gallup, you know, last week he didn't play because of it was the mental hurdle. He was like, I got to see a couple more things, I got to feel a couple more things, and then I'll be ready to go. I think today the first thing you do, you come out the gates, you give him the football. You do a little smoke screen, you do a slant, you do something where he can just touch the ball and just feel it. Let him catch it, let him secure the catch, and let him go forward. Whether it's a 1-yard gain or a 15-yard gain, for him, it's just the fact of I need to feel myself in a game to be hit, to be tackled, and get up and know that I'm okay and everything is going to be all right. And then you get on to your game plan. But, you know, I think getting him the ball early, this will also open up other things for Noah Brown, for Dalton Schultz, for CeeDee Lamb, because that vertical threat at times, you have to respect it. You got to kind of just drift a little bit more. Safeties have to hang out a little bit deeper. So now those intermediate routes that Cooper Rush and company have been successful with, in the last couple of weeks will be just a little bit more open because you have that bona fide vertical threat.
Speaking of Cooper Rush, this is going to be a battle of the gingers, by the way, the two redhead quarterbacks, right, going at each other. But you talk about getting that vertical presence back into this offense. That's something that we haven't really seen here. Now, there was a vertical shot last week. It really wasn't vertical, but a wide open shot to CeeDee Lamb. But there's only been 9 attempts on the year going deep, and I wonder if that's because a guy like Michael Gallup hasn't been there. But Cooper Rush's confidence over the last 2 games, specifically last game, it seems to be taking an extra step. And getting a guy like Michael Gallup back in this game where, let's just be honest, the Washington's corners haven't been that great. The Washington secondary hasn't been that great. I think they're going to have to kind of reel themselves in from not getting too pass happy in this game, because I think you could take some shots on these boys, and I'm with you. I hope they do. I know you want it to be a quick screen early, and I'm with you there as well, but don't be afraid to go deep against this Washington secondary with Michael Gallup or CeeDee Lamb for that matter. But let's kind of get into this Washington defensive matchup, if you will. As much as I said, take shots and all that, and I'm all for that, I looked at this team over the last 3 weeks, and I look at a team that can be ran on. They have given up the 29th most yards per carry in the NFL, and Detroit and Jacksonville ran all over these boys, man. Now, with that said, they got some boys in that middle. I know Nate loves to talk about the defensive line, man. Has he been prevalent with Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen talking about that matchup this week?
Yeah, absolutely. And the mind-boggling thing is because when you look at the names and you look at this defense has 5 first-rounders on it.
Yeah.
Like, when you think about it, and I know that they don't have Chase Young right now, but Montez Sweat and Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen, and I mean, those guys up front have been wreaking havoc in this league for a very long time. And what most people would have thought coming into this year, I know I would have, that this Washington team would have been built defensively,
right,
and been able to at least bring that presence up front and at least have that dominating presence up front and stopping the run and creating some havoc. And just for whatever odd reason, they just haven't been able to do that this year. I don't know if it's coaching. I don't know if it's want to. You know, you date back to the last time that we played the Washington Commanders in Cowboys Stadium. The most physical they got
with
each other.
Yeah.
They had a fight with each other on the sideline. And so you just think about, where is this team at mentally, because the names are there, the talent is there, but it's not showing dividends in the football game, and especially up front with those names that you talked about before.
Something I was thinking about, since Connor McGovern is back, my guess is that he's going to be put back in the starting lineup. But we saw the success they had with Jason Peters at left guard next to Tyler Smith. Do you think they look at the left guard spot like Connor McGovern and say, okay, let's see what he's got? But if he's struggling with a Daron Payne or Jonathan Allen, who are still two, really good interior guys, do you look to go towards the veteran and Jason Peters, because he's a big boy?
We already know what we have in Connor McGovern, right? Like there is visual evidence of what we have at with Connor McGovern at left guard.
Yeah.
I mean, so to me, I look at, in the short sample size of what we had last week with Jason Peters, and I go, I'm going to give the old man these reps. And if push comes to shove and he can't go, or things are looking bad, then we can go to Connor McGovern. But let me go with the thing that we saw last week and he had success. Literally the first play of the game he gets in, it's a 46-yard scamper for Tony Pollard down the field. So all this playing these games back and forth, is it Forniak? Is it McGovern? Is it Peter? Go with a guy.
That's how I'm feeling.
Go with a guy. This is a guy who has, and for all intents and purposes, been the biggest and the greatest influence on Tyler Smith. Put him out there. Let Tyler Smith line up with him. Let him understand. I can go strength for strength with one of these young boys. I can pass off, tackle in switches. I know the communication. And then I think Tyler Smith feels comfortable with Jason Peters there because of the knowledge. So I'm done with the playing around, the musical chairs at guard. Let's just go with Jason Peters. You brought him here for that reason. You brought him here to play. Let him play. And if he can't, then we go to another option. But we saw what he can do last week. Let's continue on that path.
Man, I'm right there with you. I wanted to rip the Band-Aid off this week, basically for exactly what you said. You know what you have in McGovern already. You saw enough to build with Jason Peters. Was it perfect? No. But you saw enough to build with it. And, man, it's just something about having a veteran next to Tyler Smith.
Yes.
And technically, McGovern's a veteran, but McGovern ain't been around like
he ain't a 9-time Pro Bowl veteran.
He's not that.
There's a difference. Right. He's a veteran. He ain't a 9-time Pro Bowl veteran.
And Coach McCarthy used to love talking about continuity. Yeah, that means something to an extent, but if don't preach it and you don't follow it.
Yeah.
Figure it out, because we cannot keep doing musical chairs. Now, you had to, when McGovern went out and you had to put, Fournier in, but now you kind of got two options, figure one out and let's roll. Because next week, now I know what Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne is something, but next week you can't be having miscommunications with that guy. But that's for next week.
Yeah, 99 is for next week.
That's for next week. Real quick, I'm going to actually get into my X factors before we get to the second block, because the second block is about the Cowboys defense. The first block remains about this offense, and all of my X factors revolve around the Cowboys offense. Tight ends. And the reason why I said the tight ends is because the Washington defense, they've given up 13 receptions for 150 yards against tight ends this year. If you want to turn that down, that'd be fine. Against against opposing tight ends this year, plus blocking. They used those boys against the New York Giants to block.
Yep.
So is that something that you foresee them doing again? Granted, Montez Sweat, he's a good guy, but F.A. Obata, former Dallas Cowboys, on the other end, it's not like it's Chase Young over there. But, hey, man, those boys came in and they blocked well. So I got these tight ends as being a part of the X factor. What do you think about the tight end matchup?
And not just tight ends, the young tight ends, Hendershot and Ferguson, those young boys came in and solidified some of those things. When you're talking about taking those shots down the field and you're talking about maybe using Michael Gallup in that vertical game, you're going to need to block it up. You're going to need to have that protection. And that's the one thing that I've given credit to Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore for doing, is they've solidified their blocking scheme a lot more when it came down to the passing game. They've used a play-action pass, but you see a lot of two tight end sets and say, hey, we just need some extra guys in there. Just some extra guys chipping, being around, making guys have to run humps and run through people before they can get to the quarterback, so that he's comfortable and he's not rushing his throws, that he can step into his throws and to make the throws downfield. I think that doesn't change today, because honestly, and maybe this is just me being timid. Maybe Jay Holley got a little shook juice in today. But I want to make sure that we don't get arrogant enough to think that Sweat and Payne and Allen can't turn it on.
Oh,
I don't. And that's my fear. Yeah. My fear is that we've been like, we've been good, and we take a breath, and then those dudes, because they're playing the Cowboys, have a little bit of extra incentive to go a little bit harder with the backup quarterback, and now they get loose, right? And so keeping those tight ends for that blocking purpose, to me, I think is paramount for this team's success today.
It's kind of opposite of last week. Last week, we talked about it's not the Jimmies and Joes, it was the X's and O's. Wink Martindale, you had to make sure you matched his wits. This week, there is very much Jimmies and Joes on this team that can wreck it if you don't match up with them inside. And that was the other part of my X factors, the interior guys, which we talked about already. But I want to jump to the third part, CD Lamb. We briefly touched on it at the beginning of the show here, where I personally think their secondary has not been good. Kendall Fuller has been getting cooked. They gave up over 200 yards last week to the Philadelphia wide receivers, who have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Now, this is the first game back for Michael Gallup, but very similar style of players, Michael Gallup and CD Lamb, can be problematic. And I have CD Lamb as an X factor because we should want to see him carry that second half momentum into this game. Not only from the talent standpoint, but from the mentality standpoint. He wasn't mentally focused in that first half. He had two big drops. Obviously, we know that the major one, but then he turned it back on in that second half. The consistency, we talked about that on the podcast this week. We want to see CD Lamb remain consistent for 4 quarters, right? And you have the matchup advantage, in my opinion, no matter if it's on Kendall Fuller or William Jackson III, who, by the way, I respect these guys, but CD Lamb should be better than them. So I'm looking for CD Lamb to kind of carry the momentum from the last week on and turn it up this week and kind of, it's only 1 week, but solidify himself in this offense and in the league.
I think it's almost mandatory. I think it literally is mandatory, because that has been the constant criticism of CD Lamb.
Yeah.
It's the consistency. It's, can we see what we saw? And I'm not even going to say the second half. I'm going to say in that one drive. Like, he had the CD drive. can we see what we saw in the CD drive for an entire football game? And that has been the biggest frustration, at least for me, when it's come to CD Lamb. It's, hey, I see that talent. I see you make the catch that you made last year in Minnesota. I see you go and make the one-hand catch last week against the Giants. I see you take a hit where you almost got separated from mind, body, and soul and still hold on to the football. So don't give me the other crap. Don't give me that other bull when we know that there's better. So it's for CD, it's the consistency for him. Be that guy all the time. Because not only do you need it, the team needs it.
Teams needs it.
Right. Because even in the play calling, and some may not believe this, but offensive coordinators get into a rhythm. What you don't want them to do is look at a play call on their sheet and then have to second guess it because they don't know whether you're going to make the play or not.
Or the quarterback.
Second guessing, are you going to make the play or not? You want your quarterback to be like, hey, CD's down there somewhere, and he's going to make the play for me, and not if, I don't know.
There was a play, I think we looked, I don't know if you remember, we looked at last Monday, we were like, man, CD was kind of open underneath, but I wonder if Cooper Rush kind of lost temporary confidence in him and he went elsewhere with the ball. I think that's real life stuff that we don't talk about. But let's talk about Cooper Rush for a quick second. Cool little nugget for Cooper Rush. If he wins his 4th consecutive start here, he would become the first Cowboys quarterback in 27th in NFL history to win his first 4 starts. And he technically engineered a game-winning drive in his first 3, right? That was W3.
Yep.
3, and if he, which makes him Virgil Carter as the only 2 quarterbacks with a game-winning drive in each of the first 3 starts. So Cooper Rush is starting to find some confidence, especially later on in the game, and that confidence can trickle down to guys like, CD Lamb if you give them reason to. And he did. And to Cooper Rush's credit, he said, hey, man, it's CD Lamb, so I'm going to keep going to him no matter what. And you got to love that about the quarterback there.
No, as a former receiver, I always want my quarterback to have confidence in me, right? One drop or not, I want him to come back to me again. I want him to say, hey, I'm going to give him another shot. And so you have that ability, but again, it goes back to, don't make me wrong, receiver.
Right.
When I give you the shot, when I give you the easy completion, make it. And then that way, now I'm feeling more confident that I can come back to you and even at times force feed the ball to you in situations that may not be favorable and on our side. But I'm believing that you're going to make that. You're going to make that play. So Cooper Rush has been gaining confidence, and it's helped that the offensive coordinator has been helping him with allowing him not have multiple reads, to not have to kind of figure this thing out in multiple situations, that he can say, hey, I got 1, 2, let the ball go. One read, 2 read, let the ball go. So having all of those things happen for you and Cooper Rush building that confidence, that's exactly what you want for a backup quarterback.
Last week, I dubbed it a masterful game plan with the 15 play-action passes out of that, right? Obviously, the balanced approach. We haven't even talked about the run. I mean, we did talk about the run game, but we haven't brought up Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. Yeah, put it on a loop. Put that on a loop. Seriously, man, because I think that just helps any quarterback in general, but especially your backup quarterback. But you saw, like you said, the half-field reads, the quick reads, and get it out. And if you're going to get it out, make sure your guy catches it or nobody catches it. Right. And then when it is multiple reads or a big play, it's play action to hold the defensive line, to hold the linebackers, and now you take your shot with your 2 or 3 wide receivers out in the field. So shout out to Kellen Moore for putting together a good game plan. Don't go away from it. Continue that today. Continue that next week. Just keep doing what works until it doesn't work, and then you counter off of that.
Yeah, we asking for CD to be consistent. I'm asking for Kellen Moore to be consistent. Don't get in this game, and don't you get cute, Kellen Moore. Continue on the trend let this train that you've been driving continue down the track. There's nothing that you have to do, and I don't think this team and the Washington Commanders are good enough to force you to do something other than what you've been doing.
Haven't showed that this year.
I just don't think they are. Now, again, football is a crazy, crazy girl.
Week to week.
And she can flip out on you one week and love you the next and flip out on you again. So I don't know what the Washington Commanders are bringing. But for Kellen Moore, stick to the rivers and lakes that you used to. Don't go chasing waterfall. Just stick to what you've been doing. Give this team an opportunity to be there in the fourth quarter and let your quarterback and this defense do what they've been doing for you all year long, shutting things down and closing games out.
And if he does get tempted, That's where old Freaky Mike is going to have to pull out his belt. Remember on Pootie Tang where the kid went to reach for the apple and then smack? And they looked around like, what was that? That's Mike McCarthy.
Yeah.
You know, smack him on his hand real quick. Hey, now, Kellen, we don't need to be this 3rd and 1. We don't need to be doing these passes. Don't get cute. So we need old Freaky Mike to go ahead and do his thing, too,
yes.
if he hears that something in that headset ain't right. This is the pregame show presented by Underdog Fantasy. Make sure y'all stick around. We're going to have my Underdog Fantasy pick'ems later, and we're doing a 5er. Okay, not a 2, not a 3, 5 of them things. And I feel real confident.
He getting
about
cute.
It.
Look, he getting cute. He getting cute, y'all. He's starting to feel himself a little bit.
I won one last week, so I feel a little good.
You talking about Kellen Moore. Look at you. You've been doing 2 and 3 all season. Now he's like, I got a 5 banger for you. See?
Y'all better go ahead and put ATOZ. Use that code. I feel good about this 5. Stick around. Stick around. Let's flip to the other side, man. This defense, who again, it's really hard for me to go in each week and feel nervous.
Yeah.
About a team's offense against this Cowboys defense. Especially when you give up the most sacks in the NFL, and the Dallas Cowboys come in here and they got the most sacks in the NFL. So I feel real good. Then when you combat that with Carson Wentz as the quarterback, oh man, I'm having to pull myself down. Like, hey, Will, hey, any given Sunday, relax, calm down. It's still football. You got to go out there and play. But boy, do I feel good about this matchup. But to their credit, they do have playmakers. They do have guys you have to watch out for. And let's kind of dive into a few of those guys here. J.D. McKissick, Antonio Gibson, Jahan Dotson, and Terry McLaurin are probably the focus of this offense. If you remove the quarterback, if you remove this team and you just focus on the skill players, they got some guys, Jesse.
No, absolutely. And even adding Carson Wentz to the mix, Carson Wentz doesn't lack the physical skills to play the quarterback position. He's mobile, and he has the arm strength to make any and every throw that you want him to make on the football field.
Yeah.
The problem with Carson Wentz is between the ears. At times, he struggles with the mental part of the football game. He holds the ball a long time trying to get to the deep pass down the field, trying to get to the YOLO ball and the big play, and it costs him. A lot of those sacks, when you look at the last couple of games, some of them are offensive line, some of them are quarterback induced. Some of them are just saying, hey, Carson Wentz, throw the damn ball away. And he holds on and he holds on and he holds on, and now he finds himself in a situation where he's being sacked 9 times in a football game. But to your point, the names are there. Yeah. Scary Terry, they don't call him Scary Terry because he's ugly. They call him Scary Terry because he can tear your butt up running them routes and making plays down the football field. Gibson, this is another back who can run it out of the backfield, but also can, run it to you in the slot, and kind of want to give him the kind of, we've been preaching to do what Tony Pollard, what they do with Gibson and Samuels, and have those guys playing in the slot and allow them to do some of those things. Even Logan Thomas you can add into that mix, who's a big target for those guys. It's Carson Wentz when it comes down to it. And again, I'm maybe filled with a little bit of shook juice today, but it's just what Carson Wentz is going to show up. Because if the Carson Wentz shows up that can be a really good quarterback, that might be a headache for us, because the names are there for the playmaking abilities.
They definitely have those guys, but the X factor in all of that is up front. Mm-hmm. And again, I said this on the show this week. If they can block it up, if Carson can read it, and if he's confident,
it's a lot of ifs.
There's a lot of ifs. Yeah, he can get the ball to you. But the problem is, man, the offensive line. Okay, they're going to be on their third, I believe, center. By the way, Nick Martin, Zach Martin's little brother, is going to be starting this week for.
It's great for their parents, man. Stuff like that makes me happy for their parents. That's pretty cool. When they can come watch both of their NFL sons play together. Yeah.
Maybe twice this year.
Maybe. Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty cool. As a fan, I'm pretty sad though, because number 71 was getting bullied last week against the Eagles interior. I don't know what Nick Martin's going to do. They're also dealing with some left tackle situation here, some injuries at their tackle spot. I'm not sure if he's playing or not. I didn't really see the injury report if you want to pull that up. But regardless, they weren't particularly great last week. So the Cowboys absolutely have the advantage up front. A lot of teams are going to have skill guys, right? A lot of teams, if you can block it up, quarterbacks should be able to get you the ball and things like that. But as we say often, the game is usually won in those trenches.
Yes.
And the Cowboys bring the best trench warfare game in the league right now through 3 weeks. Micah Parsons is coming off of a game where he didn't have a sack, and they're teasing him in the locker room. That the last thing Washington football people you want is this man at home, by the way.
At home, feeling better, so he's not dealing with the flu and whatever else he was dealing with.
Feeling better, coming into this game pissed off because he didn't get a sack against a guy who wants to play hero ball.
Right.
So I foresee this thing. 9 sacks last week against the Eagles that the Washington O-line gave up. I foresee at the very least half of that. 4 to 5 sacks this week, Jesse. And if not, I feel a little disappointed.
Yeah, and for Micah Parsons, you're talking about he's second in the National Football League in rush win percentage. He's at 38%, followed behind Von Miller, who's like in 40-something percent. So you're saying every time he lines up and he rushes the passer, that he's winning at a 36%, 37% rate.
Ridiculous.
That's ridiculous. And he's only playing at half the time.
Yeah.
Von Miller, who's up in the 45 percentile in winning rate, plays defensive end all the time. Micah's playing linebacker. He's playing D-end, right end. He's playing all over the place, and he's winning at almost 40% clip when he's out there rushing the passer. So having him pissed off definitely bodes well for the Cowboys defense and not so well for the Washington Commanders offensive line and their offensive game scheme, because this is a guy who's going to be ready to come out there. And now I will say this. Be pissed off, but be pissed off under control.
Yeah, don't be OC. Don't be out of control, yeah.
Don't be out of control. Don't be trying to go off and just do willy-nilly things because you want to get back with the guys and say, I got one. But still, this is kind of the same formula that I want the Cowboys defensively to do like they did last week. Still apply pressure. Still be that team, that defense. But even on the back end, Jordan Lewis and Anthony Brown, y'all play sound defense. Don't be taking no chances. You used to stay in front of your guy. Yeah. Only one can take chances in the back end is Diggs. That's it. He's the only one that can go and gamble.
Well, this week he may have to be careful because Scary and he's locked him up.
Yeah,
he's locked up Terry, no doubt about it. But I think you got to be careful with that because this year, unlike Heineke. By the way, he might even be a better option than Carson. But we know Carson does have the arm, and he will take the shot.
Right.
So I feel like Diggs might have to be a little bit under control as well because you don't want to give up that double move, and Carson going to throw that thing out there, right?
I think the double move might come from Jahan Dotson, though.
That's a guy. He's one of the X factors for them.
I think Jahan Dotson may be the guy because, again, if you go Diggs and Scary Terry, you go, all right, that's a wash. Jahan Dotson is another guy going up against Anthony Brown and Jordan Lewis that if he gets an open space, he's one of those guys that joystick where he can take it to the house on a screenplay, on a slant, on a hitch route. He has that type of big play mentality and that big play speed in him. So he might be the guy they use with that double move on someone else trying to be a little bit nosy and being a little bit too aggressive when defending their pass catchers.
I think Jahan Dotson is definitely an X factor in this game. But if you got a pass rush you got to deal with, if you are an offensive coordinator in Scott Turner and a quarterback who understands their offensive line is a little bit banged up, you're probably going to want to get the ball out fast, right? And the Washington football people did not do that. They didn't adjust early enough in that Eagles game. They adjusted late, but it was too late.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they come out trying to play a quick game. I wonder if they look at the New York Giants tape and saw what they did in the first couple drives last week and saw, okay, up-tempo, quick game, get it out. And if they're going to do that, I think the ultimate X factor this week is J.D. McKissick. He is their second leading receiver this year. He was their second leading receiver last year. If J.D. McKissick is healthy, he's one of the best pass-catching weapons in the NFL from a running back standpoint. I feel like you got to be careful with him because he can take something in the flat, and he can actually run some wheel routes, some option routes, some Texas routes, whatever you want to call them. And we said this last week, you don't want to get LVE matched up in that situation, right? You really don't want to get Anthony Barr matched up in that situation either. And I wonder if they try to do that with them. So we got to watch out for J.D. McKissick in this quick game and rally and tackle him as well, because last thing you want to do is see a routine 5-yard out turn into a 25, 30, 40, 50-yard gain, which we saw last week when you didn't tackle Saquon Barkley.
Right. No, and that's key. If their offensive coordinator, Scott, his last name is
Turner.
Scott Turner, yes. If Scott Turner, if he's looking at matchups, it's that matchup. It's how can I line up, because at this point in time, you can't tell where Micah Parsons is going to be.
Right.
But I do know where Anthony Barr and LVE is going to be. So now I kind of just have to say to myself, how can I set up the matchup to where I'm putting out a formation that's going to get J.D. McKisson or Samuels or someone like that or Gibson lined up on Barr or lined up on LVE and take advantage of that. See, the thing that we miss with Jaron Kearse is that ability to have him come down, play that big nickel, and now allow him to cover some of those running backs, allow him to cover Logan Thomas, because you would not be a smart offensive coordinator if you're not looking at trying to get my second leading receiver in McKissick in matchups that is favorable for him. So Scott Turner has to look at that and say, let's find ways to get this happening. But in the same respect, you got to get it done quickly because you still got to account for number 11.
You still got to account for him. And we're about to get to our mouse and house, and make no mistake about it, it's going to be somebody on that front line for me. And with this defensive line, it's just every week almost, really, it feels like that. Right. But we'll get to that in a second. First, it's time for a high-low, ladies and gentlemen. And I got a 5 count. I told y'all. I feel good about this. I think we're going to hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And remember, you guys can join in on this high-low presented by Underdog Fantasy. Look, it's so easy. It is a fun way, an easy way to spice up your football season, okay? It's Underdog Fantasy in their pick'em game. Just look at your favorite or least favorite players, their stats, and pick whether you think they'll end up higher or lower than the total number in this week's game, and you can end up winning 20 times more in your money, which actually that's an old one. My bad, y'all. Y'all just hold tight. I'm going to get to the right one. Give me a second. I ain't playing with y'all because I got a 5er that I like. Hold on. Here we go, baby. Here we go. So make sure y'all hit up Underdog Fantasy. Use the promo code ATOZ, and they will match your deposit all the way up to $100. And if you want to use my pick'em, you absolutely can. Hit up Underdog Fantasy or download the app. Here we go. All right, first of the 5. Carson Wentz, higher or lower than 9.5 rushing yards. Cowboys Nation, you can play along. Jesse, of course, you always play along. Higher or lower?
I'm going higher.
Yeah.
And if I'm Carson Wentz, when I popped in the tape, I'm saying, man, Daniel Jones, man, he got loose last week.
Sure.
So I'm not saying that I have to tuck it and run every time, but I'm looking at those opportunities when Micah Parsons is on the other side. There's going to be some gaps for you to go out there and run. So I'm going to say higher because with pressure at times with the mobile quarterback, they can get loose.
Fam, it's going higher because he's going to be running for his life.
Yeah, that too.
For his life. Look, Daniel Jones ran for 79 yards, and like 3 of them were legitimate quarterback draws, because that's what Daniel Jones does. They don't do that with Carson Wentz. But he probably ran for 375 yards total by running around last week. They had 35-plus pressures. Yeah. That's freaking crazy. Okay? So he's going to get more than 9 rushing yards, y'all, on the strength of him just running around and getting, trying to scramble, getting 4 or 5 yards out of dang on time. So that's easy. Higher. I feel good about that. J.D. McKissick, higher or lower, 23.5 receiving yards.
Higher.
Yeah.
I have a feeling 23 yards, that's
he's had about that or more in all 3 games this year.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with higher. I think screen game, I think, quick game. He's going to be able to because in the screen game, that's what's going to help neutralize some of that pressure. If the Washington Commanders want to come out and neutralize some of that pressure and use that pressure against the Cowboys, I let you come, and then I throw the screen. But Carson Wentz may throw it to the wrong person and maybe a pick 6. But I think they're gonna utilize the screen game today.
I think it's going to be higher for everything you just said, and even if the game kind of is still close in the fourth quarter or it's kind of out of hand, the fact that the Cowboys will play back a little bit, they'll dump it underneath. And I just think J.D. McKissick is going to be on that field, so I got higher. Now let's get to some Cowboys. Higher or lower, 9.5 receiving yards for Ezekiel Elliott. And before you say, what? That's easy. He's had negative receiving yards in 2 of the 3 games this year. And last week, I think he had like 2 receiving yards. So 9.5 receiving yards for Ezekiel Elliott.
I'm going higher.
Ooh.
I'm going higher on this. And I think they're going to use – I think you're going to see a screen or 2 with Zeke Elliott today. I think you're going to see some checkdowns. I do think early on that the Washington's front will get some pressure. I think they'll get a little bit of pressure. I think a couple check downs to Zeke, he'll pick up some positive yards and get over that 9.
I got lower. I'm going with the trend, man. I think it was like -2 first week, -3 second week, like 2 the third week. He hasn't been getting a lot of targets, and Tony Pollard is more involved in this offense than he's ever been. So I think if they want to go with the screen or go with the flare outs or whatever, they're going to do it with Tony Pollard. So I got him lower, but all it's going to take is one guy dang on screen and he gets going. So that's the one. And if you are worried about that or any of these, you guys can use the insurance. Click the insurance, and if you only get 4 out of the 5, you still win some money. All right, final 2. Tony Pollard, higher or lower than 59.5 receiving plus rushing yards?
So combined. I'm going to go higher.
I got the same thing.
And to your point, you just said, Tony Pollard's been more involved in this offense than he's ever been. And again, if they continue the trend, get Tony Pollard on the edges, allow him to use that burst. Don't try to test that middle of that defense for.
Make them big boys run.
Make them run. Allow Tony Pollard to use his speed, his explosiveness, his vision, and from what he's been able to do throughout the last couple of games, I think that's going to be over because he's been more involved than ever.
Yep, I got higher. I mean, if they did just one, which there was one, maybe you have a little bit of worry. But, dude, he can get that on one carry. You know what I mean? One carry. That's the easy one for me. And then finally, higher or lower, CeeDee Lamb, 62.5 receiving yards. This one might be the hardest one of all 5 because CeeDee Lamb's been kind of up and down this year. But the trend technically has been up over the last 2 weeks. So higher or lower than 62.5 receiving yards, Cowboys Nation and Jesse Allen.
I'm going to go lower. I'm taking the lower in this one.
Really?
I am. I think this is going to be one of those games where you might see the tight ends and you might see Noah Brown come up with another big game. But I think this is going to be one of those games where Jack Del Rio decides that he's going to take a receiver out of the game, and that receiver is going to be CeeDee Lamb. They're going to test and see if Michael Gallup has his sea legs underneath him. Is he ready to go and take that next step? He's been out for over a year. So we'll see. But I'm going to take the under for CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, this one was tough for me, but I'm going to go ahead and go with the momentum that he has here. And just I watched their secondary. It's not that great. They seem to be confused back there. Although if they do decide to double him, this is going to make it way harder.
Yeah.
Way, way harder. But I got higher. This one I don't feel that great about, though. But I think second half, CeeDee Lamb gets it going. I read a stat here of 136 of his 191 receiving yards this year have been in the second half. So I feel like he'll get going in that second half. So there we have it, y'all. My Week 4 Pick'em entries for Underdog Fantasy. Make sure you guys hit up UnderdogFantasy.com or download the app and use the promo code ATOZ and go ahead and get your Pick'ems on, man. Here we go, real quick, because kickoff starts in less than 5 minutes. Go ahead and combine your mouse in the house with your predictions, Jesse. Now we'll do the same.
My mouse in the house is Carson Wentz.
Oh, snap. I thought I was going to get cute with mine. Go ahead.
No, mine is Carson Wentz. I think this is the guy that we're going to attack.
Yeah.
Carson Wentz is jacked up mentally. Ever since that injury from him when he had that MVP season in Philadelphia, he just hasn't been able to get right. He can't get right. He cannot get right at all. And so I think now with him going forward, again, he saw him press last week against the Philadelphia Eagles. He's going to press this week against the Dallas Cowboys, trying to do too much, and that's going to be the determining factor because that hungry lion is ready to hunt. He reached out to Von Miller on Twitter and was like, he's like, man, you need to teach me how to do some. They call them the cellies now. They call the celebrations the cellies. What the young people call them.
Celly,
and I was like, Von Miller should have been your teammate. Y'all could have been practicing on cellies whatever.
But anyway.
But I think this defense continues its trend. The Lion is back. He's healthy, 100%, feels good, and he brings the pride with him. And the mouse in the house for me is going to be Carson Wentz as he turned that thing over.
Prediction.
My prediction: Cowboys 21, the Washington Commanders 13.
Okay. I got my mouse in the house. And I'm sorry, Zach, but your brother. Sorry, bro.
Sorry, little bro.
But you got to go up there against them boys that are a little bit upset. And I should say upset. But if you look at the Cowboys' pass rush rate now, it's all defense ends. The defensive tackles right now, and Bohanna's doing his job, right? He's a run guy. He's doing his job. Osa's getting some penetration and getting back there, but then he's pushing it off to the guys that get these sacks. Dorrance Armstrong, Micah, Tank, Fowler, all these boys are getting the sacks. The interior, they're not playing bad at all. They're pushing these guys. I saw Tristan Hill push somebody in the backfield and made, I think it was Daniel Jones run out. Who gets the sack? Dorrance Armstrong.
Yep.
So I feel like I watched the interior of the Eagles last week just give these boys trouble. I mean, gave them trouble. Granted, those boys are monsters. But Bohanna, Osa, Tristan hasn't been the greatest this year, but I feel like these guys have an advantage this week. So my mouse in the house is going to be Nick Martin in his first week.
Sorry, little bro.
Going up against a very hungry team. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know that Mike is going to play a ton of defensive end this week because I don't think they need him to, maybe in some past situations. But I think it's going to be blitzing right in front of Nick Martin. So I got Nick Martin being the mouse in the house. And I got the Cowboys here. 24 continue to the offense continues to go up just a little bit. 24 to 17 here. Again, 17. It still keeps it underneath that. The Cowboys have been only giving up, 17 points per game, right? 24-17. Maybe they get a late field goal to make it 20. It's 24-14, and then they kick it and try to onside kick situation. Yeah. But another good / dominant performance by the Cowboys defense. Washington tries to play catch up, and they get it to score later on. But I think this is going to be a comfortable game for the most part for Dallas. I think Cooper Rush makes history, winning his fourth. I think he'll be the only quarterback in Cowboys history to win 4 in a row. For the Cowboys, and I think it'll be a good thing, Dallas. You want to win this. You almost have to win this game.
You don't win this game, you forfeit what you've done the last 2 weeks.
Facts. And I think they will. I think they'll get it done. I think the Cowboys offense will continue to gradually improve. So,
quick question.
Yeah.
If the boys up front on the Cowboys defense whoop up on Nick Martin, does Zach Martin ask his defense for a fade in the locker room after the game?
No,
as big bro, he'd be like, hey man, you ain't have to slam my brother like that.
You had to do that.
You had to do that to my brother, man. Hey, why y'all do him like that?
Come on, man.
Do Zach Martin ask for the fade from his defensive lineman after the game if they whoop on little bro?
Who he gonna roll up on though?
Whoever.
I would love to see it.
Zach Martin gonna roll up on whoever.
Because you know what I'm just Big Bo, man. Something just about Big Bo that I would love to see him roll up on Bohanna.
But that's a funny thing. Like you just whooped my brother for 4 quarters and did some disrespectful stuff, and now I gotta come in here.
Hey.
I gotta come dap you up on the sideline.
Like Zach, that's the game, bro. Chalk it up to the game.
Chalk it up to the game.
Make sure y'all chalk it up with us. Come back here, halftime show. Jesse Holley, Skywalker still kickoff in less than a minute. We love you, Cowboys Nation. We will see you soon. Peace.
I'm in my zone, on the road to the Super Bowl. Every game on the schedule crucial, it take a toll. It don't matter if we at home or on the road. You try to tackle, I'll truck a sucker and take it soul. I'm staring at 4th and goal, gotta find an open hole. A linebacker just close a hole where I'm supposed to go. So now I'm thinking my centers are all pro, so I trust he can make a walk for wherever the ball go. Yeah, there's 5 seconds on the play clock. The crowd was loud, but they stopped. Now it's silent while they watch. They stand off in the red zone. All I see is red home. Watch me get this touchdown and this W and head home.